My name is Laura Roberts. Today we are looking at another topic, adaptation. Objectives of lesson. By the end of the lesson, students should be able to 1. Define adaptation. 2. Define adaptations. 3. Mention the types of adaptations. 4. Mention some examples of plants and their adaptations. And 5. Mention some examples of animals and their adaptive features. So what is adaptation? Adaptation can be defined as the ability of an organism to be fit, live, reproduce, and adjust to the changes successfully in an environment as a result of its adaptive features it possesses. Now, adaptive features are inherited features that help an organism to survive and reproduce in its environment, and this can be structural, functional, or behavioral. These adaptive features are traits or characteristics that have evolved over a long period of time to enable an organism to cope and survive in its habitats. So in another word, what I'm simply saying here is that for every organism to be able to survive in its habitat, it must have what we call adaptive features. So there's a difference between adaptive features and adaptation. Now, adaptive features can also be referred to as adaptations. So adaptation, that means the adaptation without S is the ability of an organism to be able to live, survive, reproduce successfully, adjust to changes in its environment. While the adaptations are those features that will help this organism to be able to carry out this. Okay, now let's take human being as our case study here. Right now, in human being we have different adaptive features that help them to survive. We'll discuss them later. Okay, for any organism to survive in an habitat, it must be able to adapt to changes that occurs in that habitat or environment. Now, there are 3 types of adaptations. Okay, don't forget that another name for adaptations is what adaptive features, namely structural adaptations, 2. Adaptive coloration, and 3. Behavioral adaptations. However, in today's lesson we shall be discussing structural adaptations. Now, structural adaptations. Structures are the physical parts on the body of an organism that can enable an organism to survive in its environment. These structures or body parts in animals help them to obtain their food, conserve water, get their mates, regulate body temperature, and even escape from their enemies. Now, these structures or body parts in plants help them to synthesize or manufacture their food, conserve water, carry out gaseous exchange, and so on. Like I said, taking human being as our case studies, if we are to mention some of the features or adaptive structures that enable human beings to adapt in its environment, we shall be mentioning legs, which is used for movement, hands, eyes, the teeth, the hairs on the body, the kidney, the lungs, the heart. All these are structures or body parts that enables human to survive in its environment. So we have different organisms with their own different structures or physical parts which enable them to survive in their environment. So these are structural adaptive features or structural adaptation. Also, take note that there is a difference between adaptation and adaptations. Adaptation is the ability, while adaptations are the what? Adaptive features. Alright. So plants can be found in aquatic and terrestrial habitats. So aquatic plants we know are called are plants that are found in aquatic habitats, while terrestrial plants are those that are found in terrestrial habitats. Now, these plants, they have different adaptive features that enable them to survive in the various type of habitats where they are found. So let's discuss the habitat and how these organisms survive in these habitats. The first one here is aquatic habitats. Aquatic plants are plants that live and thrive in aquatic habitat, especially freshwater bodies, and they are referred to or called hydrophytes. What did I say? Hydrophytes. Yes. Now, examples of hydrophytes are water lettuce, water lily, water lotus, water hyacinth, okay, and even elodia plant. All these are examples of hydrophytes or plants that can live and thrive well in aquatic habitat. So these are some images showing these hydrophytes that are common in our environment. All right. Now, the adaptive features or adaptations of hydrophytes include a airspace in their tissues, which keep them close to the surface of the water, where there is they can have access to light for photosynthesis, and of course it can also enable them to float on the surface of water, and this is what we call buoyancy. Okay, number two, they also have breathing roots. Breathing root is also known as pneumatophore. This is common in plants that are found in marshes or in swamp, especially in swamp, okay, such as the white mangrove plants. Now, the essence or the function of breathing roots is for gaseous exchange. Number three is possession of thin cuticle, which is found in those parts of the plant that are immersed in water, and the purpose of this is for absorbing water. They also have open stomata. Now, you know that stomata can be open and sometimes they can be closed, okay? Now, open stomata are found on the upper epidermis of this hydrophyte, and it is for easy exchange of gases from the environment, exchange of gases from the environment, especially from the air. Okay, number five, they have long stems and petiole. Okay, this exposes the flower and leaves to sunlight. Let's go back to the previous image we saw earlier. If you look at the images here, the first and the last, it's showing the long petiole or stem. Now, this stem is coming from the bottom of the water, so the purpose of this stem is to expose the flower or the leaves or any other plants like that, okay, to sunlight, because sunlight is needed for photosynthesis. All right, the last one here is possession of waxy cuticle on leaves to prevent wilting. Okay, all right, that is one of the adaptive features as well of hydrophyte plants. Okay, let's discuss terrestrial habitats and the plants that are found there. Now, terrestrial plants, okay, they can these are plants that can live on land, and so they are called terrestrial plants. They can either be mesophytes or xerophytes. Okay, now mesophytes or xerophytes. Now, mesophytes are found in environments where there is moderate or adequate availability of rainfall or water and temperature. So for mesophytes, water is not a challenge for them. However, for the xerophytes, they are found in deserts or arid land. That means another name for desert is arid land. Okay, they are found in places where there is little or no water. So the challenge of most xerophytes is water. Okay, they don't have access to water. Now, examples of mesophytes are hibiscus, mango plants, cassava, and other common plants in our environment. Okay, now let's look at some adaptive features or adaptations of mesophyte plants. Number one is possession of numerous or large and flat leaves for photosynthesis. They can afford to have many leaves. The leaves can even afford to be large. Why? Because they don't have issues. They have challenge with any they don't have challenge with water in the environment, so they can afford to have many leaves to lose water. Okay, and also for photosynthesis. Number two, possession of many stomata on leaves for transpiration. Don't forget that transpiration is the process by which water water is lost, or plants lose water from their leaves into the atmosphere in the form of water vapor. All right. Number three, a possession of well-developed root and shoot system. The well-developed root is for anchorage. It ensures firm anchorage to the ground, and also it's also used for absorbing soil water by the process of osmosis, if you remember from our class on osmosis and diffusion. Okay, then number five, presence of waxy cuticle on leaves to prevent water loss. Okay, these are some examples of mesophyte plants in our environment. Okay, examples of xerophytes are cassia, aloe vera, cactus, baobab, wiring grasses, and so on. These are plants that can survive in deserts where there is little or no water. Okay, let's look at some adaptations or adaptive features of xerophyte plants. Number one, possession of succulent thick leaves or stem for storing water. Now, if you happen to cut aloe vera into two, you find out that it has some jelly water, isn't it? Okay, that means that the stem, okay, is succulent, And so the essence of this water is to provide water for the aloe vera for its body metabolism. Okay, number 2 is possession of tiny and scanty leaves in desert plants. Now this plant, they cannot afford to have large leaves and many leaves like the mesophytes, because they have challenge of water, so they cannot afford to have leaves that can easily carry out transpiration and make them lose water. Okay. 3, possession of extensive root system for access to groundwater. They have root system that extend deep into the ground so that it can have access to those underground water. This is common in baobab tree. All right. Now 4, presence of leaves with thick waxy cuticle to reduce water loss. 5, some leaves are modified into spines and tongues to also reduce water loss. Okay. Now if you look at the first image here, we have cactus. Okay, cacti plants are plants that they have tongues or spines. Now the essence of this is that they cannot afford to lose the little water they have in their body, so their leaves have been modified into spine to reduce water loss. And of course, lastly here on the list, we have stomatas are reduced or sunken to reduce water loss as well. So the smaller the stomata pore, the lower the rate at which transpiration will occur. Okay, animals to live in various habitats. They can live in aquatic habitat, they can also live in terrestrial habitat. So let's look at some adaptations of animals in aquatic habitats. Okay, don't forget that animals that live in aquatic habitat are called what? Yes, aquatic animals. Good. Now, number 1 adaptive feature is possession of suckers and hairs for attaching to vegetations and even rocks, so that they are not easily washed away by water current. Okay. Number 2 is possession of swim bladder for buoyancy. I told you earlier on that the meaning of buoyancy is to help them to float on the surface of water or in water. Now, such as in fish and some other aquatic animals, they possess what we call swim bladder. Now, presence of streamlined body, this kind of body shape enables them to move easily in water. This shape can be found in fishes and even in amphibians. Okay. Now, possession of fins or webbed feet for easy movement on water. So we can have ducks and toad as example of these aquatic animals with that possesses this webbed feet. If you look at the digits of the toes, let me use that word. Okay, the digits of ducks and toad, we find out that their digits are not separate. They have what we call webbed. These webs help them to they are webbed. This help them to kind of easily walk or move on water. Okay, the last one is presence of gills for gaseous exchange. All right. Okay, let's look at some examples of aquatic animals and their adaptive features. We have fish here. Now, fish, presence of fins for movement in water. So fins, we have different kinds of fins. We have the dorsal fin, the pelvic fin, the pectoral fin, the tail fin, also known as the caudal fin, and so on. The function of this fin is that it enables them to move in water. They also have lateral line for detecting vibration in water. So you look at the part labeled as lateral line. That line enables them to detect vibration or danger in water, so that they can move away from the danger area. Okay. Number 3 is possession of gills for gaseous exchange. If you look at the second image here, you see the part labeled as gills. Okay, the gills are for gaseous exchange. Now, 4 is feed bladder for buoyancy. The bladder keep them floating in water. So observe the second image, you see the part named swim bladder. And the last one on the list here is presence of scales and powerful tails for movement. All right, let's discuss the toad. Now, what are some of the adaptive features of toad? Possession of long, sticky, and retractable tongue for catching prey. They have very long tongues, okay, and the tongues are sticky, so it can easily be retracted back into their mouth. Okay, and they use it for catching prey, especially insects. Number 2 is possession of powerful hind legs for hopping. They use it to hop from one place to another. They don't walk, right? They don't walk, so they use the hind limbs to hop from one place to another. Then number 3 is possession of moist skin, lungs for gaseous exchange. They also have what we call poison gland, and this is common to toad. It's used for protection. Poison gland is not found in frog. That is why some people can feed on frog, but they can't dare eat toad. Okay, presence of wat. If you look at those bumps on the body of the image here, those are wat. Okay, and the functions of the wat is that it gives protection. It contains some secretion that can what serve as protection for the toad. Then also we have presence of web feet, and the function of the web feet is for swimming. All right. Okay. Now, adaptations of animals in terrestrial habitats. Okay, possession of hair folds for regulating body temperature, possession of lungs for gaseous exchange, possession of limbs for movement. We know limbs, hands and legs. Okay, forelimbs and hands leg. Then the possession of feathers for temperature regulation. Yes, presence of sweat gland for excretion and cooling. These are some adaptations of animals in terrestrial habitats. Now, some terrestrial habitats live on or in trees, and those animals are called arboreal animals. Examples are monkeys, baboons, insects, birds, and so on. Some insects and some birds, though. All right. Okay. Now these are some animals that can be found in terrestrial habitats. We have mammal. We belong to that class. Human being belong to the class of mammal. Okay. Now, what are some of the adaptive features? Number 1 is presence of sweat gland for excretion and cooling. All right, it helps when you sweat. Okay, you are carrying out excretion. All right, you are removing some excretory waste, and also sweating helps to what cool or reduce your body temperature. Number 2 is possession of lungs for gaseous exchange. All right, you need lungs for taking in oxygen and taking out carbon dioxide. Number 3 is possession of hairs on fur. This can be on all parts of the body of the organism, and sometimes can just be on parts of the body of an organism, and it's used for regulating body temperature. Now, number 4, presence of kidneys for excretion and osmoregulation. Osmoregulation is the balancing, okay, of salt and water level in our body. Okay, let's look at birds. Okay, now, what are some adaptive features of birds? Number 1 is presence of beaks for picking food or tearing and killing prey. Look at the first image here. You see the long beaks of some of these birds. So they use it for picking maybe grains like rice, insects, and the rest. Okay, and some of them use it for tearing their prey and even killing them. Okay, number 2, possession of streamlined body for easy flight in birds. The kind of shape of birds, okay, is streamlined, and it helps them to easily fly in the air. Number 3, presence of hollow bones for lightweight. Their bones are hollow, so it makes them light and easy to what? Fly. Number 4, presence of claws at their feet for catching and carrying prey. If you've ever seen a hawk catching a chick, okay, it is due to the help of its feet, the claws at the feet. All right. Number 5, presence of oil gland. Okay, this helps to prevent wetness. It gives them kind of waterproof. All right, that is why the water, when they swim inside water or water happen to touch their body, it doesn't soak them. After a while, it just slide off their feather, because the feather contain oil gland that is being secreted from the body of the birds. Okay, now let's look at some arboreals. Okay, we have monkey here. Now, what are the adaptive features that enable monkeys to survive on trees and of course on land? Number 1 is presence of prehensile tail for balancing in monkey. Now, the prehensile tail are not just ordinary tail. These are tail that can be used for grasping things. They use it for holding objects, holding their babies. They can use it to swing from one tree to another, and when they jump from on top of the tree to the ground, they can even use it to balance themselves like a third leg. Wow, wonderful tails. Number 2, presence of powerful limbs, claws and tails for climbing, especially in baboons and of course in monkeys. Number 3, possession of lungs for gaseous exchange. And number 4, possession of force or hair on their body for regulating body temperature. Let's look at the flying insect like butterfly, for example. They too can fly to the top of the tree. Now, okay, what they have that help them to do this? Now they have what we call possession of fore and hind limbs, wings, sorry, for flight. They use their wings to fly to the top of the trees. Also, presence of antennae for sensitivity. Okay, and 3 here, presence of 3 pairs of walking legs for climbing. All right. Okay, also we have other organisms like tadpole. Tadpole are baby fish and baby toad. Yeah, baby toad and baby frog. Yes, tadpoles, take note, are baby or young toads or young frogs. What are their adaptations or adaptive features? They have gills for gaseous exchange. All right, they have eyes for sight. They have fore and hind limbs for movement. They have mouth for feeding. They have tail and even tail fins that enable them to swim in water. Okay, then number 2 here we have tapeworm. Tapeworm are Endo Parasite. We have discussed this in one of our classes. They are Endo Parasite. Okay, they are found inside the small intestine of their host. They feed on the digested food of their host. They don't have mouth, they don't have digestive system, they don't have alimentary canal, yet they feed. Now what are the adaptive features that enable them to live successfully in the small intestine and then obtain food from them? A here is that they have suckers and hooks at their skullet. Their skullet is the head. Okay, the head of a tapeworm is called a scullet. It contains suckers and hooks. Okay, and they use it for attaching to the wall of the host intestine. It is not for sucking food. No, it is for attaching to the host intestine. B here, they have large surface area to allow body to absorb food from any point. Okay, they also have flat ribbon like body. That is why they call them tapeworm. They look like tape roll. Okay, and this help them to fit into the intestine of man. Okay, and here they have permeable body for absorbing digestive. So their body is so thin that digested food from the intestine can easily go into their body, and they then use it for their own life processes. Oh, okay, at this time I will say we are through with our class. This is the students' activity. Like we always say, all you need to do is go through the question, answer the question to know your mastery of this topic. If you don't understand anything, go back to the video, listen to it again, watch it, and of course you should be able to solve every question here and much more that you come across. All right, okay. This is the answer to the student activities. All you need to do now is to quickly mark yourself. Take time and mark yourself. Okay, I hope you have your 100%. Okay, for the 100%, I'll say a very big clap to you. All right, also I want to remind you to subscribe to my video, to view my videos, also to download as many times as you can. This is a teaching video. Is to enable you to be grounded in biology as a topic, and it is very good for every level of student. All right, so at this moment I want to thank you for joining in this class. Thank you for learning. Have a wonderful time.